I'm basing my 4 chairs on this chair to some extent. And there was another chair that I also used as a reference that was a little chunkier. And the chairs that I'm making are going to have a hard seat and not a rush woven seat. Rushes were frequently used for making baskets and chair seats. Made a nice, sturdy, but springy seat. But I couldn't accomplish that in these little tiny pieces of furniture. I have woven these seats in the past, but I couldn't do it for this. And I'm starting out with a template, and you see what I'm using here is not wood, but rather a kind of foam board, but it's not like the traditional foam board that we have here. This actually originates in Europe, and it's very hard, and it's almost like a combination of plaster and foam, and it can be sanded, and it doesn't have paper on the outside. And I took a piece and split it, and this was left over from building my dollhouse, the last dollhouse. And I'm just cutting some pieces of wood that I had that are actually banisters, or they could be used as chair rails. And I had quite a few of these, so I'm using them up, and I'm using them as the decorative elements for the uprights in these chairs, and also for the legs, and even the braces. But I have to do a bit of carving on them. So I'm cutting these down to be the right size, and just giving them a quick sand. Now, this video is going to be a little different than the other ones I've made. I lost a little footage. We had a lot of power outages. We had hailstorms. Tornadoes went by us. We didn't get hit, but we had a lot of wind and hail over the past 2 weeks, off and on. And it's been quite a ride, so that's why I wasn't able to get this video out. There were times when even though we have a whole house generator, our generator failed, and we had no electricity at all. And so it's been quite a ride. But anyway, that's why I didn't do a video last week. I had the chairs about half finished and then couldn't finish them until just a few days ago. So it's a little different. I'm going to show a little bit of each chair, and hopefully it will make sense. And like I said, I made 4. Now, the history behind these chairs is similar to the history of the chairs I did in previous videos for this log home. But these chairs are a sort of combination between the Windsor and the Queen Anne that came out in the early 17th century. I'm sorry, the early 18th century. And a man named John Duran of Milford, Connecticut, made quite a few of chairs like this after they had been made by somebody else, of course, but he perfected it. And his work mostly showed up in the 1760s to the 1770s. But there were a lot of inventories of houses that would show these types of chairs that had a combination of the Queen Anne and sort of referenced the Chippendale furniture that would come later. The Chinese influence of the top of the chair with a little bit of the influence of those chairs started in the early 18th century. And it was a very favored style. They liked that Chinese influence. And this one has the sort of fiddle back without, of course, the uprights. And chairs like this were often made by novices and put together for their own homes if they weren't wealthy people. That's kind of what I'm aiming at here, is having the man of the house had made these chairs in my story. And he's a pretty good carpenter, but of course he's not at the level of somebody like a John Durand of Milford, Connecticut. So anyway, that's the background. You'll see the influences of the Queen Anne just in the shape, not in the legs, and early influences of Chippendale to come later. What I'm doing is I'm using a little balsa wood here. There's very little balsa wood in these chairs. The seat and this brace in the back is the only balsa wood that is used. And then these chair rails or some kind of wood. I'm not quite sure what the wood is. It's a little softer than basswood. So I'm just putting a little hole in the ends here because I'm going to actually put a needle, pieces of pins that I've cut in as a support. And I have a drill that I'm going to use. This is a very fine drill. I'll put the link for this drill in the description. I really like this drill. It doesn't hold a charge for a long time though, so you kind of have to keep the charger handy. So when you're done using it, just hook it back up again. And this particular one comes with a variety of sizes. So I'm just drilling in a hole. Because I have arthritis in my hands, the little hand drill it's a little hard on my hands, so I went ahead and bought this. It was on sale. I don't know if it still is. Just going to insert a piece of pin, stainless steel pin in there, and some wood glue. And I did sand this a little bit first. As you can see, I have an emery board down there. And this is a piece of wood that comes off of actually kind of a Q-tip. I had these really large Q-tips that had wooden sticks with them, and it was just the right size, so I cut up a few of them, and I'm using them as the back legs. These legs don't splay out toward the back. These are just coming straight down from the back of the chair. And that's how the chair was made in the two illustrations that I had. So I'm going with that. Now these are going to be cut up into the front legs. And also a piece of it will be used later as a support for the front that's decorative. So, and of course this is 1/12 size scale. This is the piece that will be used as a support, and I'm just going to give it a general size here and then trim it down later. I do have to do quite a bit of carving on the legs and these supports to make them look a little more decorative and make them fit. This wood's quite soft, and it, as you can see, you can cut it with an X-Acto knife. I do use a little saw occasionally just to make sure I don't split it. Some of these did split, so later on I began to use a micro saw. I will speed this video up, but I wanted to start a little slow here just so you could see how I was cutting this. Okay, and there's the seat. It's just a piece of balsa wood that's cut out, and I lost some of the film, so I didn't show these getting cut out. I cut them all out, just 4 seats, and I'm just pushing this piece of leg in to mark the place where the chair seat wraps around the leg, and then just cutting it out. And this all gets sanded later on. And in the beginning, I would leave just a little piece on the front and then sand that off later so it would look like it wraps around a bit. And just putting a few slices in, it just helps to take that wood out so it doesn't split or grab too much of the wood from underneath. It has a tendency to, if it's a bit fibrous, it will pull out too much out of the one side or the other. So there, it's cut in four places for the back and for the front. And I'm just going to trim down the front legs a little bit. And this trimmed portion will go against the floor. And I'll sand these two a little bit later. I left them a little like they're hand carved. I wanted them to look a little more homemade and not so polished as maybe a professional would make. And of course, I'm not a professional, so it makes sense. And this is a number 2 blade, which is a bit larger blade. Now this piece is actually, that piece that I cut on both ends, that's the piece that will go in the front to brace the chair underneath the seat. And this is another leg for the front. So the back legs don't have the same decorative element, but the front legs will have it. And the 2 uprights on the back of the chair will have a decorative element to them. So this gets glued, and I'm just going to pick that off. It's a little bit too long. And then I'll sand it down later. And just put a bit of wood glue on there and attach it. The good thing about wood glue is it does remain a little bit flexible, so you can bend these legs a little bit if they're not completely straight when the braces go on, and that will straighten them out. At least the wood glue that I'm using. Now these are some more Q-tips, and they have wooden sticks on them, and I'm going to use these as the braces under the chair. And I've had these Q-tips for a long time. I bought them for cleaning purposes, and they came in various sizes. So the back legs are Q-tip wood and the front legs. And now I'm just going to glue in that piece. The back goes right in there. I already glued the legs on. You saw me drill the holes. And I put a pin in there, remember? And now I'm just gluing the whole back on and the front. And then I'll just let that dry. And once it's dry, then I'll put the braces in. Okay, I left it to dry. And this little piece here is going to get trimmed. Now I'm not going to drill holes for these. I'm just going to glue them in. I started with using just wood glue, and then later I switched to using super glue. I found that it dried faster, and it seemed to be pretty strong. But I'm using wood glue in the beginning, and I just want to get it in between that first leg's, the rung of the turning, and then I'll make it even in the back, and they're going to be the same size. And these are going on the sides of the legs of the chair. Some of these were really tough. They were hard to cut. But I just kept turning it around and working it, so. Okay, now I have my 2 side braces, and I'm just going to give them a little tiny bit of a trim on one end to go in between the decorative element where it's turned above the place where it was carved. That will go against the floor, just so it'll fit. And I'm going to use wood glue. I just put it in a little piece of waste plastic. That way I don't have to waste it. I can cover it with a little piece of something after I use it, and then I can keep using it. And it fits pretty snug, so I'm just going to let it there, just as long as you get it even. And you see how I put the glue right under that last rung of that front decorative part of the leg. And the carved end goes against that rung in the front, so it fits in between. And then I'm just placing it on the back, and it should hold itself. Just put a little more glue in there. The glue will shrink up, so. And then this carved piece will go between the 2, and I measured it so that it will fit. I'm just looking here to see what needs to be trimmed off on either side. And I'm just using a pair of really sharp wire cutters to do that. And it didn't really come in clearly, but you can see. The camera was still focusing on the chair, unfortunately. And then I just put a spot of glue on each end and glued it on. So that's the first chair is finished, and now I'm going to the second chair. And I've cut out the pieces, picked the pieces that I'm going to cut apart rather, and start on those. And I have the seat already done. I cut all 4 seats out at the same time so they'd be the same size. And the first piece is that decorative piece that will go beneath the chair. And I decided to try to just cut that with these shears, wire shears, and didn't work real well, but it did work. And those will be the front legs. And I'm measuring those. I'm just eyeballing the front legs to be about the same size. And they ended up being exactly the same size. I didn't mark everything. But if you're not good at doing that, measure by all means. And these will be the front legs, as I said. I'll carve one end and just measuring one against the other. And I'll just mark that with a pencil. And I'm going to use my little hand saw to do this because I want it to be flat. It needs to be flush with the seat. Okay. Now I have my front legs and the front piece. Those will have to be carved. And the front piece that braces underneath. And I'm just cutting these right off at the top for the chair back. And I'll sand down any excess fraying from the wood. And I'll just cut these. Again, I'm just eyeballing it. And this is a back upright that hooks onto that white piece above. This little saw has come in handy. If you have really super hard wood, it doesn't work real well, but on these chair rails or whatever they are, chair rails, fence rails, stair rails, the wood is quite soft, so it cuts pretty well. And again, I'll just sand those down just to make sure that they're flush with the top of the chair and the chair seat, rather. Again, during that period of time of the 18th century in colonial America and the early part of the century, there was a lot of wood here in what is now the United States, and people had access to walnut and maple and oak and pine and various other woods, poplar, ash, and so on. And so furniture making became quite an industry. And of course, in the beginning, before factory furniture, it was handmade, but continued to be handmade even to today. I have a Windsor chair. Someday I'll show a picture of it that was made by a chair maker when we lived in Virginia, in Waterford, Virginia. And it's just absolutely beautiful. My husband bought it for me at our 25th wedding anniversary, and I've been married 48 years, so it was quite a while ago. But this particular furniture maker, he's still active, and he always showed his work at the Waterford Fair, which is in the first week of October in Waterford, Virginia. And there's a lot of reenactments that begin in the 17th century concerns to the Civil War. Waterford was established in the 17th century, I think 1639, and that's where we lived, in Waterford, Virginia. So they have quite a long history. And this furniture maker actually made the same Windsor chair that my husband bought me. He made for the Queen when she was alive, 2 of them, and they are in Buckingham Palace. So how's that? They had ordered 2 from this man I think to replace some chairs, and I bought one that's exactly like what is still, I think, in Buckingham Palace. So I don't know how much my husband paid for that chair. I think it must have been quite a bit of money. But it was a 25th anniversary, and I really wanted the chair, and so he actually ordered it, and the man made it, and we got it about 6 months later. It was sent to us. I'm just drilling those holes for the top to put pins in. And I'll get those metal pins. I always save the pins I cut up for other things, the little pieces, and then trim them to size when I use them for bracing like this. And I'm just going to glue that. This one was a little too long, so I'm trimming it. It does add quite a bit of strength to the furniture. Because that it's not really foam core, it's, I don't know what it's called. Because it's a bit brittle, I wanted to make sure that I could stabilize it so it wouldn't break at the top where it's carved. And I'll just stick that right through. Just trimming, pushing it in and making sure it's straight. And I'm going to use a little bit of wood glue to attach that. And I'm using a paintbrush. It just makes it less messy. I have a little bird out here. Probably can hear him. We have a nest they built on the side of the house, and that's the male, and he's telling everybody, stay away, this is my territory. Okay. Just getting it right in the middle. One was a little tough. I don't know what was going on with that, but it did eventually go in. And I'll just do the other one. I've already put the pin in the other upright. I know this film doesn't look like it's speeded up, but it is. It's actually going pretty fast. It just isn't as fast as I usually do. So I slowed everything down a little bit, so the video's a little bit longer. And just make sure those are in right. And these will be sanded again too, this white portion. And now I'm going to adjust the seat. These are the back legs cut off from that giant Q-tip. There were like 6 different sizes of Q-tips in this package that I bought, and I haven't been using them for cleaning much, so I have a ton of them, and they're nice little dowels. They make nice little dowels, so I have all kinds of sizes. I'm saving the cotton heads. I might use them for something later. I'm not sure what, but you never know. I decided to just keep using this little saw. Just to make sure it's flat on the bottom. And then I'll sand that again. I'm just using the other chair now to make sure I get the size the same. I think I'm actually in this video on chair number 3, but I'm not sure. And these chairs will go under that trestle table. So it will be there'll be 4 chairs for this dining room set. And there will eventually be 4 people living in the house. There's a mother, a father, there will be an older son, and there'll be a little baby that I'm going to make a cradle for. And I think I might make that cradle next. I've already started working on the characters for this. I have not been filming it because I'm not set up for sewing, but you'll see what I'm doing. I'll show it in stages to some degree, but I won't actually make a video. It is a little difficult to watch people sew, I think, with videos, although some people like it. I'm not real fond of watching other people sew, although I'm very fond of sewing. This is that middle piece that's somewhat decorative, and it gets carved on both ends. And there it is, a brace under the seat. Okay, I'm getting all my pieces together here. I'll still have to cut out those 2 supports that will go on either side of the seat, under the seat. And I'll do that. And I'm just pressing this into the balsa wood to mark where they go again. So this is a bit of a repeat. And these chairs actually ended up being quite sturdy. They're lightweight, of course, but they actually are pretty sturdy. And this will just go around the legs. I actually did try to weave seats. I did an experiment. I made little frames. I used all kinds of different types of string and yarn, and I just couldn't get it to work. It just kept collapsing on me. And as I said, I've actually woven rush seats in the past, and I just couldn't get it to work. So maybe somebody has some ideas, or maybe somebody's actually done it in the past. I could just make a woven seat the next time I make a chair. They had those too. It wasn't the kind of weaving where it ends up having a center. You weave on all 4 sides till you get to a center. But I'll see. I'll keep working on it, actually. Maybe if I make a bigger chair with a woven seat, like a rocker or something. Okay, there's all the pieces. And now I'm going to put it together. And I already glued everything. You saw me glue it before. And I'm just putting that middle piece in. And I did use wood glue on that one. But I think the last chair that I make, I actually used super glue. Okay, now we've got, I don't know if I showed that before, but when I glued these together to make them flat, I glued them against a piece of foam board to hold them down and pin them. And then I'm going to put that brace in the back. And I'm actually pushing, it's this balsa wood, pushing it in so that it crushes up against those rungs, those decorative rungs. So I'm applying pressure. And then I put some glue in, and now I'm going to pin this onto this board. I did this for each one, and this will hold it so that it glues flat and everything is in place. So I thought I better show that. Now these are two chairs that are finished, and I painted them. Okay. And now I'm going to sand it. This is how I sanded it with an emery board. And I did spend quite a bit of time sanding. And now I'm going to paint this. This is the third chair. And I'm using raw umber for the first coat mixed with a little bit of wood glue. Oops. And it took 2 coats. Well, actually on the white part it took 3 coats. The wood part only needed 2. The white part was a little difficult to cover, so I had to have 3 coats on all 4 chairs. And then I finished them up with another color, but you'll see that. So the first couple of coats are just acrylic paint, matte acrylic paint, burnt umber, mixed with about, I'd say, 1/4 wood glue. I found that the wood glue hardens up once it dries, hardens up the balsa wood a bit, and that's why I do this. Okay, now we're at the last chair, and I'm just sanding, and and I did this for each chair back. I use these rasps, diamond-coated rasps, to make sure that all of the sanding was done properly, and I could get into the curves. This is the brace that goes underneath the seat, and I sanded each leg, but I didn't overly sand them. As I said before, I wanted them to have more of a homemade look to them. So, and I'm using wood glue again to fill in those indentations for the rails for the seat. That's for the back. And I'm going to put in that brace and then glue it in. And I'm on the last chair here. Okay, and I'm going to paint it. So you saw how I put it all together before, and now this is the last chair that's getting painted. And when all of these are dried completely, I'm going to put the last coating on, which is going to be a glaze. And it'll be in the oak color to match the trestle table. The good thing about this paint is it is a bit thick, and it does fill in any cracks. And because it has that wood glue in it, it just makes everything stronger. And I think that's why these chairs are quite sturdy, part of the reason. I'm just trying to get the paint as smooth as possible. I don't want it to be gloppy. So I get that back done thoroughly. These chairs are not difficult to make. I'm just showing that again for the last chair because I didn't, I wanted to just go over it one more time, how I did it. I'd actually had finished it by this point, but I just wanted to reiterate how it's done. Ah, see, that can happen. You just try to put it in and it just falls off. So I wanted to show how I actually, some of them for some reason wouldn't stay. So I just put pins in as supports underneath, and I wanted to show that. And it was okay that they're not perfectly straight because, like I said, there's some flexibility to that glue. So, and then I went over every chair afterwards with this glaze. It's actually a gel stain, and this is the color oak. And it does dry a little bit darker than you see here. And it has a little bit of a sheen to it, but it's not, I wouldn't call it a gloss. It's more like a satin. I've been using this a lot. And there's that last chair again. And I'm just going to go over that again, just to make sure that if you missed anything in the beginning because of the way it was filmed, you can see how I did it. So if you're already, know how to do it by now, you can skip this part. I used super glue for this. I wanted to show that. And this actually worked quite well. I was a little ambivalent about using super glue because it's not flexible. But for these chair supports at the end, it actually worked really well. And I didn't need to use the wood glue, and it made it so I could work quite a bit faster. And this is the gel super glue, so it stays Loctite gel, ultra gel. So you see how it just forms a bead there and doesn't run. And I'm just gonna, whoops, you have to turn that around because the pointed end has to go in between that groove there to fit. And the flat end goes on the other side. And then I even glued this main support in between the legs with the super glue, and it worked really well. And then because I put wood glue in the paint, it ended up being just as sturdy as the other ones. It fills in all those little cracks and adheres. And so that's the final chair. And then I sanded it and painted it in just the manner that I did before. And again, it's the burnt umber. Very inexpensive paint. And mixed with about a third of the wood glue. And then I'll use the glaze after it dries. And you can see the other 3 chairs off to the side there, they're finished and glazed already. And I did sand in between coats, I just didn't show it. Everything didn't have to be sanded, so just certain parts of it. And there it is. Final coat. Okay, here's all 4 chairs finished. And I just have them in my little log room just to show you. Here's 2 against the wall to show you that they lean up against the wall well. They go under the little trestle table perfectly. And here it is from the top. Well, thank you for watching. I hope you like and subscribe. And I'll be back next week. I hope. Bye-bye.